Ferrari hadn't won a world championship in exactly 16 years, 5 months, and 12 days. 5,978 days of broken promises, shattered Italian dreams, and tifosi heartbreak. The Scuderia that once dominated Formula One with legends like Niki Lauda, Jody Scheckter, and the great Gilles Villeneuve had become motorsport's most expensive, most visible, most embarrassing disappointment. The faithful fans still packed Monza every September, waving their Ferrari flags with diminishing hope and increasing desperation. Then May 1996 arrived. Michael Schumacher signed the contract, and absolutely everything changed forever. The announcement on that spring day shocked the entire paddock to its core. Michael Schumacher, reigning double world champion and Benetton's untouchable golden boy, was leaving his winning team for Ferrari. Not just any Ferrari move either, but a reported $25 million annual contract that instantly made him the highest-paid athlete in motorsport history. Critics immediately called it catastrophic career suicide. Ferrari was completely broken, they confidently declared. The team was drowning in political chaos, they accurately claimed. Schumacher was foolishly throwing away his absolute prime years for Italian glory that could never materialize. They were about to be proven spectacularly, embarrassingly wrong. Understanding why this was considered suicide requires understanding how broken Ferrari truly was in 1996. They hadn't won a Constructors' Championship since 1983, 13 years of failure. No Drivers' Champion since Jody Scheckter in 1979, 17 years of disappointment. During those years, they had employed genuinely world-class drivers. Alain Prost, 4-time world champion, left Ferrari bitter and defeated after 2 frustrating seasons. Nigel Mansell, the 1992 champion, lasted just 1 miserable year. Gerhard Berger and John Alesi, both talented racers, achieved almost nothing in red. The pattern was clear and depressing. The challenge facing Schumacher was genuinely immense and daunting. Ferrari's 1995 car had been an absolute disaster on wheels. Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger, both highly accomplished and experienced drivers, had collectively managed just 1 single victory between them across the entire season. The team structure was badly fractured and dysfunctional, with engineers and Maranello barely communicating with strategists at the track. Political infighting was constant. Departments blamed each other for failures. Nobody took responsibility. Everyone had excuses ready. Luca di Montezemolo, Ferrari's powerful president, had already tried absolutely everything he could imagine. Money definitely wasn't the issue. Ferrari had plenty of resources. Organization was the fundamental problem. Leadership was completely missing. Winner's mentality was utterly absent. The team had forgotten how to win, how to function under pressure, how to deliver when championships were on the line. Schumacher understood immediately upon arrival that rebuilding Ferrari required far more than just driving fast laps. It required complete revolution from top to bottom. His very first demand shocked the established Ferrari hierarchy to their core. Bring Ross Brawn from Benetton immediately as technical director, he insisted firmly. Then bring Rory Byrne as chief designer. Then completely restructure the entire engineering department around pure performance rather than political considerations. Ferrari's old guard bristled intensely at this German invasion, this brutal assault on tradition. These were outsiders who didn't understand Ferrari's soul, they protested loudly. But Montezemolo backed Schumacher absolutely and completely. If this radical approach was what winning truly required, then politics and tradition would be sacrificed without hesitation. For the first time in decades, Ferrari chose cold performance over warm prestige. The cultural shock was immense. Ferrari had always done things the Italian way, with passion and emotion dominating engineering decisions. Schumacher brought German efficiency and precision. Testing sessions became longer and more methodical. Data analysis replaced gut feeling. Performance metrics replaced political connections. The old Ferrari employees either adapted or left. A new culture was being built. The 1996 season was predictably difficult and frustrating. 3 hard-fought victories at Spain, Belgium, and Italy showed genuine promise and potential, but Jacques Villeneuve's superior Williams took the championship battle all the way to the dramatic final race. Schumacher finished third in the championship, respectable, but nowhere near Ferrari's expectations or demands. Jerez 1997 brought the controversy that still echoes and divides opinion today. Schumacher, desperately defending his fragile championship lead against Villeneuve in the final race, deliberately turned into Villeneuve's Williams at a crucial corner. The collision was intentional, obvious to everyone watching, and ultimately disqualifying. The FIA stripped Schumacher of all his championship points for the season. Critics immediately called it catastrophic career suicide. This was the real Schumacher, they triumphantly declared. Talented but fundamentally dirty. Fast but completely unethical. A cheat who would do anything to win. The incident damaged Schumacher's reputation significantly. British media was particularly harsh, calling him a disgrace to the sport. Even some Ferrari supporters questioned whether he was the right man to lead their team back to glory. The pressure on Schumacher intensified enormously, but through it all, Ferrari stood by him. Montezemolo publicly defended his driver, showing loyalty that Schumacher would never forget. But something else critically important happened during 1997 that outside observers completely missed in the controversy. Ferrari's entire infrastructure was transforming systematically beneath the surface. Brawn methodically implemented revolutionary systems borrowed from Adrian Newey's design philosophy, but carefully adapted for Ferrari's unique Italian culture. Brawn designed and built state-of-the-art wind tunnels that rivaled or exceeded anything at Williams or McLaren. Testing programs were reorganized around data rather than driver preference. Schumacher personally spent hundreds of dedicated hours in the driving simulator, providing feedback so microscopically precise and detailed that engineers could identify tiny aerodynamic issues purely from analyzing his steering input patterns alone. The solid foundation was being carefully laid, brick by methodical brick. 1998 brought genuine heartbreak. They hurt deeply. Schumacher won 6 races convincingly at Argentina, Canada, France, Britain, Hungary, and Italy, dominating the championship for long months. He led the standings for most of the season, but a cruelly stalling engine at Suzuka's final race handed Mika Häkkinen the world title by just 14 points. Ferrari had come agonizingly close, only to fail at the worst possible moment. The disappointment was crushing for everyone.
1999 was somehow even worse and more painful. A broken leg suffered at Silverstone sidelined Schumacher for 6 crucial races during the championship battle. Eddie Irvine, suddenly elevated to team leader, carried the fight brilliantly and bravely, winning in Austria and Germany. Schumacher returned at Malaysia, not fully fit, and immediately proved he was still faster than everyone despite the injury. Ferrari went to the final race in Japan with a genuine chance, but Häkkinen won, Irvine finished third, and Ferrari lost the championship by just 4 agonizing points. 3 complete years at Ferrari with Schumacher, 0 world championships delivered, 0 glory achieved. The critics grew much louder and more persistent. Maybe restoring Ferrari really was genuinely impossible after all. Maybe the curse was real. Then came the year 2000, and absolutely everything clicked perfectly into place like a Swiss watch. The F1 2000 car, designed by Brawn with input from every mistake of the previous 3 years, was genuinely fast everywhere, supremely reliable, and perfectly matched to Schumacher's unique driving style. The team operated with mechanical precision. Race strategies were tactically flawless. Reliability was absolutely perfect, not a single mechanical retirement all season. Race after race after race, Schumacher delivered exactly what Ferrari desperately needed. Malaysia in the rain, brilliant. Brazil with tactical genius, dominant. San Marino at Imola, the Italian fans roaring. Europe at the Nürburgring, perfect. Canada in Montreal, commanding. Italy at beloved Monza, where the Tifosi went absolutely wild. United States at Indianapolis, and finally Japan at Suzuka. 9 commanding victories, but the World Championship was only finally dramatically secured at the final race in Suzuka, with Häkkinen pushing relentlessly until the very last lap, refusing to surrender. Crossing the finish line as world champion, Schumacher screamed into his radio with raw emotion that cracked his usually iron-controlled voice into pieces. "We did it! We finally did it! Yes!" The Ferrari garage erupted in absolute pandemonium and pure joy that was decades in the making. Mechanics who had suffered through 21 years of disappointment and failure wept openly and unashamedly, grown men crying like children. Jean Todt, Ferrari's dignified team principal who had kept faith through the darkest times, stood on the pit wall with tears streaming uncontrollably down his weathered face. This wasn't just another championship trophy to polish and display. This was redemption for an entire historic institution, for a nation's wounded pride. Michael Schumacher had ended Ferrari's brutal 21-year championship drought. The impossible had been achieved against all odds. The curse was finally broken. Italy could breathe again. The Monza podium celebration that year remains one of Formula One's most profoundly emotional moments. The Italian crowd, the devoted tifosi who had waited so long, erupted in joy that could be heard for miles. They sang the Italian national anthem with tears streaming. Ferrari flags waved everywhere, a sea of red. Schumacher stood on the podium understanding he had achieved something beyond sport. He had restored a nation's faith. But Schumacher wasn't remotely satisfied with just one championship title. One championship was certainly historic, but total dominance, absolute supremacy was the real goal. 2001 brought 11 dominant victories and the title secured comfortably with 4 races still remaining. 2002 was even crushing to the competition. 11 wins again, championship wrapped up completely by July. Ferrari wasn't just winning races anymore, they were fundamentally redefining what dominance meant in modern Formula One. Technical regulations were changed specifically and explicitly to slow Ferrari down. It didn't matter at all. Schumacher and Ferrari kept winning relentlessly. The statistics became absolutely absurd and record-breaking. 2003 brought 6 more victories and yet another world championship. 2004 delivered an incredible 13 wins from just 18 races and the title secured in August. 5 consecutive world championships, 72 Grand Prix victories in just 5 dominant years. Records that had seemed absolutely permanent for decades were being systematically shattered monthly. Juan Manuel Fangio's legendary 5 titles were surpassed. Alain Prost's 51 career wins were exceeded. Jim Clark's records were completely obliterated. Schumacher wasn't just the greatest driver of his era. Serious arguments began about whether he was the greatest in the entire history of motorsport. The secret was the complete package Ferrari had systematically built. Schumacher's raw talent was extraordinary, but the infrastructure was equally critical. Brawn's strategies were perfect, often winning races before cars reached the track. Byrne's designs were aerodynamically superior. The pit crew executed stops in under 7 seconds with robotic consistency. Every element operated in perfect harmony. Schumacher's legendary work ethic became paddock mythology. While others vacationed, Schumacher tested at Fiorano. While rivals played golf, Schumacher analyzed telemetry for hours. His conditioning rivaled Olympic athletes. His mental preparation involved visualization so detailed he could drive perfect laps mentally before seeing circuits. Racing was his life, winning his obsession. The relationship between Schumacher and Ferrari transcended employer and employee. Schumacher became genuinely Italian, learning the language fluently, embracing the culture entirely. The tifosi adopted him as their own. When he won at Monza, the roar was deafening. When he announced retirement in 2006, grown men sobbed. He wasn't just their champion, they were their salvation. The 2005 and 2006 seasons brought challenges. Alonso's Renault broke Ferrari's dominance. New regulations limited testing. Schumacher was 35, then 36, racing against drivers 10 years younger, but his speed remained extraordinary. He simply no longer had the best car. Ferrari's golden era was ending.
The retirement announcement came before Monza 2006. After 10 years, 91 victories, 7 championships, Schumacher would step away. The final race at Brazil was emotional but winless. A 4th place, a quiet ending to the loudest career in history. But the legacy was secured. He had transformed Ferrari from disappointment into dynasty. He had restored Italian pride. The resurrection was complete and permanent.